visit.
It would be so fun to hang out with him.
Welcome, Noam.
Raucher. Thank God you got my
Raucher.
first name right.
I was afraid to say your last name. Welcome, Noam Raucher. This is Divorce Diary Show podcast. I totally fucked up my own intro. I don't care because that's what this show's about. It's about
Get
being.
it, Gina.
I'm so excited to have you guys. We have the divorced rabbi here tonight, and he does a bunch of wonderful things in the divorce community and beyond. He has a ton of podcasts that I'd love for you to kind of give your own intro because I was doing a lot of research on you, and now I just don't want to fuck it up. So, Noam, welcome, Noam, everybody. And Noam, can you tell everybody a little bit about you and what you are doing for the divorce community?
Is research the professional way of saying stalking?
I knew you were going to go for that. Yes.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do call it research, actually.
Fair enough. So my name's Noam Raucher. I'm an ordained rabbi. I do a lot of teaching now, but I also do coaching as well. I find that coaching is a great way for me to articulate myself and to help people through a lot of different situations. I do spiritual coaching and divorce coaching as well. The spiritual coaching is really for everyone, and frankly, so is the divorce coaching. But my niche for divorce coaching is for men, and particularly helping them walk through divorce with a sense of strategy and confidence and dignity as well, particularly when they feel blindsided and abandoned in divorce. I've tried to create some opportunities just to, give voice to the things that I'm really interested in. So I have the Jewish Divorce Project with someone that I met on Bumble, actually, during the pandemic. We'd started this podcast after meeting on Bumble. We didn't date or anything like that. She lives in another state. You've been on the show. You've met Sheva. She's fantastic. But we have a really good time on the podcast, and it's a blast. It's been a lot of fun putting that together and giving me a chance to really kind of grow and express myself and find a voice for divorce. And then I've also been really into men's work for the last few years. I mean, I want to say since 2018, I've been doing men's work and part of a men's group. And so I wanted to create a podcast in which I could voice some of those things that I've learned and feel like could be really helpful to people. So that's called a Human podcast. What'd you say?
I was listening to it this weekend.
Oh, was it good? Did you like it?
It was good. I was laughing because I'm gonna bust on you. I'm like, why does he always have these female co-hosts? I was like, does he fuck them? I'm totally joking. I know you haven't.
Oh my God.
But
no,
I have to bring this up because I was like, I'm gonna take risks with Noam, and if he doesn't like it, I could totally delete the recording.
No, it's okay.
But I felt like I was like, well, Sheva, right? Okay. I really like her, and she totally threw me a little shade because I was late because I was on my live, but you got the date wrong, Noam, just so you know.
I got the date wrong. No, I didn't.
Yes, you did it. You put 2021, so I looked and I was like, oh, it's April 11th as opposed, but it was.
Wait a second, but it's still in April of. Why would I say 2021? Would you taking your DeLorean back in time?
I can't believe you just used a Back to the Future reference. I love it. Well, wait. So I was like, okay, so Sheva and then the other girl, and I was like, who the hell? He has all these female.
No. I think the female voice is actually one that's really good counterbalance to all these things, right? I don't think there should be a bubble involved. And admittedly, I've thought that maybe the human podcast should be like an all guys thing, but at the same time, I think women have a really wonderful thing to say. So yeah, I had Joy originally as my co-host, and then that wasn't working too well, and so
she's not on there.
Yeah, no. The later episodes have all been with this wonderful woman named Crystal Morris, who focuses a lot also on kind of this new age, medically induced hallucinogenic trips and whatnot for people. So she's a wonderful partner to have on these conversations. Crystal is fantastic.
So wait, I have a question. So this is awesome. This is great. So you do a lot of things, guys. He's got podcasts, spiritual advisor. I was listening to your background. So I was listening to the first episode of the Human podcast to get a little bit background on you, and why you became a rabbi. And I love that you were at he was at a hospital, in a mental health hospital, right?
I was working there. Let's be clear. I was working at the Yale Psychiatric Hospital. Yes.
Working, not okay.
There's a big difference between saying being there and working there. Let's just be clear about that.
Yes, yes, but I thought that was great. And I liked hearing more of that story. I thought, wow, I have so many questions because I wanted to be I wanted to do drama therapy a few years ago, and I was
In
studying,
a psychiatric hospital
yes, in a
as a
psychiatric,
patient or a professional?
well, maybe both at some point.
I
Who
think you
knows?
could fit in easily.
I do. That's why I always teach in self-contained classrooms with theaters, because I fit in the,
By that you mean padded walls?
there's cozy cushions, okay? Cozy corner. So you have a very diverse background. I was very interested about the spiritual lens as well as the counseling lens that combine, and I wanted to pick your brain in a little bit about what I tend to do in my life that may be holding me back from being more effective in my work, right? So when,
Sure.
I know we talked offline about like, oh, if you ever want advice from a rabbi, and I was like, well, I would love to learn more about the, the Jewish faith and all that stuff down the road, because I was raised Catholic, and I'm Italian Catholic, and we are always apologizing.
Basically Jewish.
Okay, so we had this joke. So I told my mom I'm interviewing a divorced rabbi, and she's like, just so you know, I just told her I'm interviewing a
Just
divorced.
so you know, Gina.
She goes, just so you know, they'll never see you as a true Jew.
As a true Jew.
I was like, I'm not converting. What are you talking? She goes,
I
if you
love
start
your mom.
dating,
I love your family.
just
I
because
want to
she's
meet
like,
them and
and
drink with
she
them.
would, she would die if like I said that. But I was like, you know what? Because my mom was like, if you ever date, even when I was a kid, she's like, if you ever date a Jewish guy, they're never going to really see you. I said, who? Because they're so old school. And the funny thing is, and my dad would always say, well, if you do marry a Jewish guy, Jesus was a Jew. It's like, what the fuck? And then my ex-husband, his last, well, I won't say his last name, but
Yeah,
his
don't say his last name. Don't
his
identify him.
people could
Is he
probably,
Jewish? Was he Jewish?
well, his bloodline, his father was Jewish. So like,
Oh,
right. So like his grandparents were Jewish, but he was raised Catholic because his mom was Irish Catholic, and she was seen as like never good enough for their son, even though the father like cheated on the mother. It was like a whole thing.
oh
But
my
they stay married.
God. We call that Mishigas.
What is it called?
We call that Mishigas when like there's just a whole big mess. It's a Mishigas.
What do you I love that. So what do you call like someone like me who's high strung, excited about very small things, but like also overreactive? What is a Hebrew term for me?
I mean, I would. These are Yiddish terms, but we would say you're Meshuga.
A Meshuga.
Meshuga.
That's not good though, right?
I mean, Mushugana. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're crazy. You got a lot going on, Gina. Mushugana.
Mushugana, I love it. Okay, so Mushugana. So you have all these wonderful avenues to filter out how to help people through divorce and those who are just kind of needing self-help, right?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of that. A lot of people are also, I think, trying to find their way through challenges that life brings them, just natural challenges, right? That could be right the basic ones that come from, let's say, like divorce, right? Major transitions in their lives that are unexpected. Life throws you a curveball, or unemployment, or even the pandemic, right? There was a lot of spiritual coaching that went on there because we just had all this open time and people didn't know what to do with it. So it was kind of like, what do you do with all this open space? And for a lot of people, right, a very spiritual and often religious term is this idea of wilderness, right? This kind of boundless, borderless area, right, that is undefined, and almost anything can happen. And so, what do you do when you're wandering through something like that, right? This is what the Israelites did, but what do you do when you're wandering through something like that? How do you make the most of it, right? What can it teach you about yourself? And so, the pandemic was actually, I don't want to say wonderful. It wasn't wonderful by a long shot. Neither was the quarantine for a lot of people. But for those of us that I think were just trying to get through it, right? Those of us who are healthy, who didn't necessarily have to worry about contracting COVID, who are just trying to, manage homeschooling and all that stuff and working from home. I think that the very base level of it, there was still a lot of questions and confusions about what do you do with all that open space. And so, helping people figure out like just using the time well and using the open
Yeah.
space well, and how do I deal with all this stuff was a big deal of my work during that period.
And I think that's where we were all struggling of how we fit into this space where
Right.
if especially my role as actor or teacher, I can't have to be in front of somebody, right? And
Right.
so that I think that the beauty in that is that you can find ways to help people now through a different paradigm. And I love that because it connected me with so many wonderful people. I love social media and creating content. And I think that I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and my
Yeah.
and they're all about positive mindset and finding the beauty in the struggle, right? So I love that you're also in these podcasts, especially I think, which one was I listening to that it was it might have been the sex, you guys had a sex therapist on one of the Jewish on the divorce
We've had a couple of those, yeah.
oh, you have, I listened to one of them, I thought it was great.
The
Then
sex and dating episodes are the ones that get the highest rating and listenership. I mean, like we could talk about the depression that goes on in the divorce or the isolation or dealing with a bad ex or whatever it is. The sex and dating episodes are always the ones that get most popular.
because everybody wants, I believe that most humans, if not all, want human touch,
Sex.
feel, sex, right?
Yeah.
And then also there's insecurities with sex. Like I so I was listening to that episode and then I was very intrigued by, I don't remember the term that she said, that you have to take the bath and you can't even have a hair. And I was like, I would never ever
Oh,
be
the
able to do
mikvah,
that. Yeah.
the
The mix.
ritual bath. Yeah.
So in the Divorce Diaries TV series, we're writing the finale episode of season 1, and she meets. We're trying to put a little bit of a barrier between real Michele and Michele in the show, and
Sure.
she meets a younger guy who's Jewish.
Mm.
I said to my producer, I was like, well, should I make it? Because he's also writing the episode with me this last episode. I said, should I make it so that like, she's like, I don't know if like I could like, we should make it so that there's going to be so many issues because he's neat freak. And I'm like, and then the fact that like all this stuff. So I was intrigued by this conversation. And then I also like the fact that you're very open about your journey. I don't feel
Mm.
like a lot of men talk about um I have had male friends talk about anxiety and depression,
Yeah.
but they like you said it on your that one of the episodes. Oh, so maybe it wasn't the sex episode that I heard it on. You said that, or you might have even, yeah, you said that you take antidepressants or you have taken them.
Yeah.
So I love that you say that because not many men want to share that, and they need to.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. I
that they
mean,
need to share it, but like they don't, they're not honest about it. I've been with a lot of men that are like, I haven't been with a lot of men, but the men that I've been with, majority of them have like major, uh, flaws.
issue. Oh, look, I mean, depression is no stranger to men, right? It is just something that we kind of fall into, whether it's chemical or circumstantial. And for me, a lot of it's circumstantial. It's just kind of like the circumstances that I'm in aren't ones that really particularly bring me joy. And so my natural disposition is to go into depression, and using antidepressants has always been a way to get through it. And certainly so is therapy, and so is my men's group, and so is just kind of getting out of the house and working out and not letting the depression control my life. Because there are certainly days where I'll lay in bed and be like, fuck it, I'm not going to the gym, right? I'd rather not do that. And then the part of me that would rather not listen to that voice says, go to the gym anyway, right? And just spend 20 minutes on the treadmill, right? It's not like you have to do a big workout, but you just need to get your body moving and your blood flowing. And I think, like there's a lot of shit out there that men could face,
Yeah,
and that they do face, right? Which causes them to fall into depression rather easily, right? I mean, there's a lot of societal pressure for men to be producers. And women are equally responsible in creating that circumstance as well, because it's just a patriarchal dynamic that we're dealing with, right? Women like to be supported. I don't want to say that generally is true for all women, right? But generally the role, right, that women tend to play is when they're in typical traditional male female relationships is that the man has to be the one who produces things for the family. He's generally got the higher salary, he's got to bring home the bacon, so he spends a lot of time at the office, right? And if that doesn't necessarily work out, then he hasn't fulfilled his role as a man. And so, it's easy for guys to fall into this position of, well, what really is my worth? And if a man gets cheated on, right, that's even worse to say that, like, well, I couldn't have been, really bringing her any pleasure, any type of joy in her life. And so, of course, my worth is equally, detracted as a result of that. And so there's just a lot of pressure that guys face as a result of their circumstances, and that allows for divorce to creep in, I think, rather easily. And so going to therapy on a regular basis, or taking medication, in my case, I do both. I've kind of weaned off the therapy at this point because I was doing it for so long. And my
yeah,
therapist even said, I don't think you need this anymore.
yeah.
And
My
so,
therapist did too because I
yeah,
didn't finish paying my bill, but um,
yeah. But it's funny how, how many guys will kind of, um, they'll try to say that like they don't need therapy, but they need something else. There's a really funny comic. He's getting so much popularity. I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he has this really funny joke about how he's got a guy friend who's getting divorced for the second time, and he says to his friends, you know, maybe you should go to therapy. And he says, nah, running, that's my therapy, right? And so the comic says, oh, that's interesting because sushi, that's like my haircut. And so, you know, like you have to really, if you're going to go to therapy, you have to go to therapy, right? You can't say that something else is therapy. Therapy is therapy. There's nothing like it.
Oh yeah,
And that could be the thing
100%.
that will really end up saving your life.